Have you ever had one of those like really huge ideas that just kind of like, I don't know, pokes at your brain?
Maybe.
Just maybe there's a whole other level to everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, today we're diving headfirst into one of those, the egg theory.
That's right.
I am your host for this deep dive.
I am the expert.
And we're so glad you're joining us today.
Definitely.
So the egg theory, it's like this wild concept that could totally change how you think about, well, being you.
It really is. And we've been going through this super interesting video transcript. It's from the Dreamium YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And they break down the egg theory in this way that just grabs you, you know. It's one of those ideas that sticks with you and makes you kind of re-examine the world and yourself a little differently.
Exactly. And our mission today is to unpack this whole egg theory thing, you know, really get into it.
Yeah.
Using this video as our guide.
Right.
We want to go past the surface. Like, what is at the core of this idea? Where does it, like, bump into some seriously old philosophical ideas?
Yeah.
And even where it might, like, weirdly connect to some modern science stuff.
Exactly.
So we're going to talk about this mind-blowing concept of a single consciousness.
Right.
What would that even mean for, like, our sense of individuality?
Yeah.
How does that mess with our understanding of time?
Yeah.
We'll even bring in some heavy hitters like Schopenhauer, Spinoza, and of course this short story that gave this whole theory its name.
Right.
Are you ready to dive in?
I am so ready. Let's do it.
Okay, so the video doesn't like present this as a hard fact or anything.
Yeah, no.
It's more like a really powerful way to look at how we see things.
Right.
It makes you question, like, what do we even mean when we say real and individual?
Exactly. It really challenges those assumptions.
So let's go straight to the heart of it.
Okay.
This big idea of one consciousness. Okay.
Right.
The egg theory, the way the video lays it out, says that each and every one of us, every person who's ever been alive,
Right.
is alive right now,
Right.
or will ever be alive. We're all just expressions of the same, like, underlying universal consciousness.
Whoa.
Just sit with that for a second.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. What's really trippy is what this means for how we, like, experience ourselves. You know that feeling you have right now? Like you're a separate person, totally distinct from everyone else.
Yeah.
The theory says that's actually kind of an illusion, like a, quote, trick of perception, as the video puts it.
It's a huge shift in thinking, for sure.
It is. It's like a complete paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And the video even says, I'm going to quote this directly,
Okay.
every life you have seen, loved, or hated has been, is, or will be yours.
Wow.
Let that sink in for a minute. Every happy moment, every time you felt pain, every single experience you've ever seen another person go through, according to this theory, it's all part of your journey, just playing out through these different lenses of this one consciousness.
That's profound.
It really is.
It really makes you rethink what I even means, you know?
Totally.
Like, instead of being this fixed, separate self, the theory says what we think of as our individual self is more like a blip in this vast ocean of consciousness.
Which brings us to Arthur Schopenhauer. Now, the video talks about his idea of a universal will.
Right.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit.
Right.
Schopenhauer basically said there's this fundamental force driving everything, but it's unconscious. He called it will. And he said because we're all, like, limited in how we see the world, we think we're separate and in control.
Right. We think we're calling the shots.
Yeah, exactly.
But Schopenhauer saw us as parts of this underlying will. We experience everything as if it's unique to us, but he argued that this separateness is just our limited viewpoint, not the actual truth of things.
Right. So that feeling of the core sense of being a totally independent person that you're probably feeling right now, Schopenhauer would say, and the egg theory kind of backs this up, it's like a mirage. You know,
it's a powerful illusion.
It is a powerful illusion. We're all just like temporary expressions of this bigger thing that's always happening.
Separating process,
Yeah. So if we take this core idea of the egg theory, this single consciousness, and then we, like, layer Schopenhauer's universal will on top of it,
okay, yeah,
it starts to unravel everything we think we know about who you are.
It really does.
If that I that you feel so strongly is actually an illusion, what does that even mean for your actions, your choices, your whole experience of being alive?
Yeah, those are the big questions.
Huge questions.
And it leads us to, like, what is reality even? And the video brings in Baruch Spinoza, who had this super wild, all-encompassing view. He basically said, God is the universe, right?
Oh, okay.
In Spinoza's philosophy, every single thing, objects, thought, feelings, it's all just this one infinite substance expressing itself in different ways.
Okay. Help me connect the dots.
Yeah, okay, sure.
How does Spinoza's idea of this, like, totally interconnected universe fit with the egg theory and this single consciousness that we're supposedly a part of?
Okay, so if everything is fundamentally part of the same underlying reality, like Spinoza thought, then the egg theory's idea of one universal consciousness doesn't seem so far out, does it?
No, I guess not.
In fact, the video suggests that from Spinoza's perspective, the egg theory could be like the inevitable destiny of consciousness, this ongoing process of this one substance manifesting as all these individual experiences, maybe even ultimately returning to a unified state.
Okay, so think about this. If we're all just different angles, different perspectives of the same fundamental consciousness, what happens to our normal ideas about morality?
Right.
Justice, good and evil, the whole deal. The video calls them rules within the same game.
Exactly. Yeah. If the person committing an act and the person experiencing it are ultimately the same entity, just going through different phases, then how we normally see guilt and innocence and punishment, as a way to balance things out, it starts to look very different.
It does.
The video suggests that punishment becomes more like a natural consequence within this continuous cycle of experience for this one consciousness, rather than some judgment from, an outside force.
It's almost like one actor playing every role in this massive play.
Right.
Experiencing every part from every angle.
Yeah, experiencing it all.
So the video also talks about how this egg theory really took off in popular culture. And that's because of Andy Weir's short story, The Egg.
Oh, yes.
Have you read that?
I have, yeah. Andy Weir, he wrote The Martian.
Yeah.
He also wrote this amazing short story where a man who has died meets this higher power, and this being tells him that he's actually lived every single human life throughout all of history.
Every single one?
Every single one.
Whoa. And the universe itself is described as an egg, right?
Yeah.
And the whole point of it is for this one soul, which is you, to experience all these different lives, to reach some higher level, right?
That's the essence of Weir's story. It puts this narrative around this abstract idea of a single consciousness going through the whole cycle of possible experiences. And, the video creator actually adds this little personal story here about a near-death experience that they had.
Yeah.
And it resonated with Weir's story, so it's interesting. They present it as a personal reflection, something that really connected with them. Not like scientific proof of the theory, of course, but a very personal connection to it.
It is. It's really interesting. Okay, let's zoom out a bit here. If this egg theory is even a little bit true, how could it change the way we see society, even spirituality?
Yeah, those are big areas.
The video suggests that society, with all its complications, the conflicts, the cooperation, all the changes, it could all be seen as like a giant theater.
That's stage, yeah.
Yeah, for this single consciousness to learn and grow from every fight for power, every revolution. Anytime society shifts, it becomes just another scene in this never-ending play of self-discovery.
So what might look like separate opposing forces in society are actually just different parts of the same thing interacting.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a pretty radical idea.
It is. And what about those really deep questions about spirituality? Does the egg theory just totally overturn all those traditional ideas about right and wrong that you might have grown up with?
Well, it definitely offers a different viewpoint. The video makes this point. If all of us have literally been every other person who's ever lived, then the usual ideas about sin and salvation and divine judgment, like there's some outside force deciding these things, they become less important. The focus shifts inward to this journey of self-exploration within this universal consciousness. What you judge harshly in another person in one life, well, you might have experienced that yourself, or even done it in another life.
Right.
There's no outside judge, just this unfolding of experience for the self.
It's like ultimate empathy, but on a cosmic scale.
Exactly. Cosmic.
Yeah, I really like that part where the video started talking about some possible scientific connections to this theory.
Oh, yeah.
Did any of those really stand out to you?
Definitely, especially when we look at quantum physics. The video brings up this thing called entanglement.
Oh, yeah.
Where two particles are connected in this way that they instantly affect each other, no matter how far apart they are.
Right.
And this points to this level of interconnectedness in the universe that's beyond what we can see and experience with our normal sense.
It is. So the question the video asks us to think about is this. If tiny particles can have these non-local connections, could consciousness itself work that way too?
Right. Could our minds be far more interconnected than we realize? It's a pretty speculative idea, but it's fascinating.
It is. And then the video brings in Sigmund Freud, right?
Yes.
and his ideas about the subconscious.
Right.
Freud argued that our conscious mind, that sense of I we were talking about earlier, isn't actually totally in control.
Right. We're not fully aware of what's going on.
There are these deeper levels of the mind that affect our thoughts and feelings and behaviors, and we often don't even realize it.
Yeah, we're influenced by things we're not conscious of.
Exactly. And the video says this Freudian idea that the ego isn't really the boss could line up with the egg theory. Our conscious self is just a temporary mask, a tiny expression within this larger universal consciousness.
Yeah, a fleeting glimpse of something much bigger.
So your individual identity, that feeling of me that you have, could just be the surface level of a much deeper, more interconnected reality.
And the video even rethinks evolution. It suggests that it's not just about physical adaptation, but also about this underlying consciousness adapting.
Through all these different experiences and perspective.
Makes you think about what progress really,
It does.
If the egg theory holds any water, what we see as human progress, all the good or bad, it might just be the single consciousness slowly gathering experiences, refining its understanding through all these lives.
It's a vast, ongoing experiment.
Yeah, but the video brings up a really important point, something to think about. What if the egg theory is totally wrong? Even if we toss this whole single consciousness idea out, those big mysteries about our existence and how we see ourselves, they don't just disappear, do they?
They don't go away, no.
Where does your sense of being you actually come from? Why don't you just feel like a small part of something much bigger?
Those are deep questions.
Huge, unanswered questions that still fascinate philosophers and scientists.
And probably will for a long time.
Yeah, totally. The mystery of consciousness, how we feel like you, it's a puzzle we're still figuring out.
Yeah, it really is. The egg theory gives us one way to look at it, a really compelling thought experiment.
Yeah, it's a great thought experiment.
But even if it's not the answer, it makes us confront the limits of what we know and the enduring mystery of being alive,
It really does. So we've taken this deep dive into the egg theory.
We have.
The idea that we're all just facets of one universal consciousness throughout all of time. We looked at how it challenges our sense of individuality, how it connects to the philosophies of Schopenhauer and Spinoza.
We talked about the short story that made it famous. And even some cool parallels in quantum physics and Freudian psychology that might make you think a little differently.
Yeah, it's a lot to consider.
It is. And remember, this whole exploration has been based on that Dreamium YouTube video.
That's right.
If you got really curious, I highly recommend checking out that original source to go even deeper.
Definitely. It's worth a watch.
And here's a final thought, something to really ponder. If this sense we have of being a separate individual is actually a trick, like the egg theory says, what would that open up for us if we could truly understand the interconnectedness of all experiences? Imagine the connections, the empathy, the deeper understanding we could have.
Yeah, imagine that.
It's a big question and one worth exploring. Until our next deep dive, keep those minds open and keep questioning everything.
Absolutely. Keep questioning.